welcome to another episode of WTF, Waking the Femme with Divine Pisces 222. On today's episode, Purge, baby, purge. Trauma responses and emotions. We will be discussing how certain trauma responses trigger certain emotions, and I will also be talking to emotional code clearing specialist Kelly from moongirlhealing. So strap in, let's get this started. So glad to have you guys with me today on another episode of WTF with Divine Pisces 222. So as I stated earlier, I will be talking to Kelly with moongirlhealing here a little bit later. But first, I really want to dig into the topic that we will be talking to each other about today. Guys, I think most of you already kind of know what I do, but in the spirit of transparency, in a nutshell, basically what I do is I help lift people out of their trauma. Most people don't realize what kind of trauma cycles they are repeating. And so, today we're really going to be discussing certain emotions and what are triggered by these trauma responses, and how to tell what kind of trauma you might be experiencing, what kind of cycle you might be experiencing, and how to deal with the response, whether it's emotionally, even mentally sometimes, because as we know, emotions can actually affect our brain. Depending on which emotion cycle we are repeating. And so Kelly, what was so amazing about talking to Kelly is getting some insight on certain emotional codes and what are triggering these codes, and how to recognize the triggers themselves, so that you can learn from the emotions and learn how to control the emotions instead of letting the emotions control you. We a lot of times, those of us in the spiritual community, we talk about having sovereignty and being able to control yourself, because that's the only thing you can control. You cannot control anything external. But a lot of times we do get into our ego brain and we let certain emotions control us because we get so low. I think the lowest vibration when we talk about the vibrational map is actually shame, which brings about the emotion of guilt, which is a very difficult one to overcome. That's the bottom. So when we talk about rock bottom, we're talking about those of us who have been in there. We've all been there. Trust me, we have all been there. Every single person has been to that point of just feeling so low and so afraid and so ashamed. And whether that's a shame for how you got there in the first place, or some of us, it's feeling ashamed for asking for help, feeling like, we can't ask for help. Feeling so prisoned by these emotions that we don't understand them. We just know that we're feeling them and we don't know how to get out. So coming into the idea of emotional intelligence and being able to tell what emotion is being triggered at that time, to be able to lift yourself out, is a very powerful thing. It's a very empowering thing to not let your emotions control you, but being able to control your emotions, right? So that's really what we'll be digging in today. But also, guys, just a reminder of how important it is to not marginalize your own trauma or your own emotional response to trauma situations. And I talked about this on my last episode, how important it is to keep things in perspective. So for example, you may have somebody that who has gone through a major high-level trauma event, and you may be trying to compare that to, I went through a traumatic event that was traumatic for me, but it's nowhere near what this person went through, so therefore mine's not as bad. However, it's when you put it in perspective of where you were on the vibrational map, your experience with your trauma, your vibrational level, you would have been vibrating at the same level as, say, this other person who may have gone through what you would consider high level trauma. But you were vibrating the same. you know. So and I talk about this during the interview, but I just want to reiterate, guys, it's the same thing with, let's talk about faith for a minute. We talk about how you know, the 3D is an illusion, and unfortunately a lot of people take that way too literally. You know, you can't you know, you can't walk through walls. Obviously walls are molecular, and if you're vibrating at the same frequency of that wall, you're not going to be able to walk through it, right? This brings the superhero Flash to mind, where he could just vibrate so fast he could walk through walls. But no, that's really not what we're talking about. It's the idea that these 3D constructs that we have really are an illusion. So, for example, religion, and I talk about this a lot, the difference between religion and faith. Religion is a man made construct that is taken from faith, which is organic, and it's turned into a 3D, really, in a way, kind of a control factor. However, faith is organic. Faith is something that we're born with. Most of us, you know, even proclaimed quote unquote atheists, you know, we all are born with this innate sense of there is something higher than ourselves. Now, we may not be able to define it at that time, but that's where religion comes in. It's been like, oh, well, what you're feeling is God, or what you're feeling is, you know, whatever it is that you believe in, right? So if you were, and I talked about this with a client of mine, and it was very insightful, and it is exactly what I'm trying to illustrate, is the idea that you may have somebody who is in their Christian faith, not religion, faith, okay, and someone else who is in their Buddhist faith, standing right next to each other, but they're in their faith. Now, the name on that faith may be different. The belief in, you know, whatever the name you want to put on that higher power, you know, is different because of the name, but they will be vibrating at the same frequency, the same level. That's what we mean by the 3D being an illusion, okay? And why it's so important to put things in perspective. So, you know, for example, you being in a situation that is traumatic for you would be vibrating at the same level as that other person that had what you would consider high level trauma. You may be vibrating at the same level in those circumstances. So be very, very careful that you're not marginalizing your trauma or someone else's trauma on that token. Everyone experiences trauma different. So give yourself a break, okay? Give yourself a break for some of these emotions you're feeling, because they are valid to you, okay? So I want you to keep that in mind as I go through this interview with Kelly. So once again, I am interviewing Kelly with moongirlhealing. She is an emotional code clearing specialist. This is what she specializes in, and I'm so honored to be able to speak to her today. All right, so Kelly, thank you so much for joining me today.
So happy to be here.
Good. Yes. So those of you again, this is Kelly with moongirlhealing, and we're going to be discussing emotional code clearing, how certain trauma cycles actually affect your emotional codes. But first, I really want to go into a little bit more about what Kelly actually offers, what she does, and how she may be able to help you. So, Kelly, what is it that you do?
I empower women who are tired of feeling abandoned and rejected by romantic partners to be able to help them overcome their pain so that they can have the relationship of their dreams.
Yes, that's awesome. And of course, that's right in line with basically the majority of our collective. As you know, we love the soul connections, we love the twin flame journey, but with the journey obviously comes a lot of repeating traumatic cycles, especially in romantic relationships or even relationships with our families and things like that. So can you go into maybe a little bit more about how you do that? How do you help these women?
So basically, what we do is we start digging deep. A lot of us like to put a band aid over it and carry on with our normal day to day life. But what we do is we stop that. We're not putting a band aid over it anymore. We're going to actually confront these issues and we're going to get rid of them once and for all. So, what we do is we have a session one on one. We can do it remotely, depending on what the client wants. We start identifying what we have trapped, what type of emotions did we trap? Are they do they even belong to us? Are they inherited? Are they past life? Or did we absorb them from somebody else and we're still carrying them? And there's no need for us to be doing this anymore. It doesn't serve our highest good. So we identify exactly where they are, what type of emotion they are, and then we just go ahead and we release them. Once we release, we take away all emotional charge. So our subconscious can still process that, because it has to still come out. And once they're gone, they're gone. It doesn't come back again.
Awesome. So that being said, I mean, can you give us some examples of how you've helped people in the past? You know, what has been your experience with the results and what it is you do?
So not only can I do this on adults, we do it on children as well, because children, they have a lot of traumatic experiences. Even the birth process is extremely traumatic on a child. We also do it on animals. So I will give you, I'll give you two examples, the ones that really stand out in my head. I was working with a client. Her entire relationship with herself, from the time she could even remember, has always been one of searching for love. She was obsessed with finding love. And that's not always a bad thing, but when you take it to the extreme, it doesn't work out so well.
Right.
So one thing, we had 2 sessions. After the second session, she messaged me and she said, I just want to let you know I'm having a love affair with myself now. I love me. And one of my sayings I always say is, it can either be one day or today can be day one. And
Yes.
today is my day one. And the fact that she had fallen in love with herself after 2 sessions, it still really gets to me, because that is huge.
Mm-hmm.
That's huge for somebody who's been searching for love their entire life, to find that she had it within her the whole time.
And that's like the missing link, right? It's like realizing that we had the love the entire time. We were searching for it external of ourselves, but that we already had it inside. And of course, Oscar Wilde said it best: to love oneself is the beginning of a lifelong romance. And that's definitely true. Definitely.
Yes,
Yeah.
it is. And to be able to help her find that romance with herself is just humbling. It's humbling.
I'll tell you what, something like that fulfills you like nothing else possibly could. So I definitely understand that. So tell me about this other one that sticks in your mind.
So the other one is actually in regards to an animal. And this is to be able to be a part of this was amazing for me watching it. So with this animal, he was a horse. Spent summers with his owner up in the mountains. It was just, they had such a bond. And the owner had gone away on vacation with their family, had a house sitter come. The animal ended up getting injured, and nobody had been able to get on the horse to interact with it in almost 10 years. We did one session. Everything that we had pulled out of the horse, things like sadness, heartbreak, abandonment, all tied back to when the animal got hurt and his owner wasn't there to help him through that, as well as feeling that he had let his owner down because he couldn't be ridden anymore. So we cleared that. Within 20 minutes, this horse began to whinny at his owner, start coming up to him, sniffing him. The next day, he was riding his best friend again. They managed to have that connection come back stronger than it was. Just, you wouldn't even know something had happened. You'd think that the owner had been out there with him every single day. And 10 years, this poor animal was holding this.
Let me tell you something. Animals, and we talk about spirit animals and things like that, because I can totally relate to that. I have a cat who, when I was going through what I was going through, I had to leave him behind for a little while I got myself situated, and he tried to run away, and he was traumatized by that. So I know animals feel it, and especially when you have a particular animal that you're connected with, that is your spirit animal. That is your connection with that species or that plane, if you want to say. And it coming from a place where we have really people who honestly think that humans are the only ones who are conscious, and that is absolutely untrue. Animals have their own trauma. Plants, trees, everything has a consciousness in some way. Just because it's not the same consciousness as yours, or you can't see it in a different way, doesn't mean that's something else that's not conscious. And, you know, going down a rabbit hole with that, we can talk about it later, but just guys, understand just how connected we all really are. And the power of unity is incredibly important. So thank you so much for sharing that with me, Kelly. So if you don't mind, maybe telling people how they can find you, how can they book services with you?
So I do have a Facebook page. It is Moongirl Healing, as well as on Instagram, which is also at Moongirl Healing. I do have a link to my website in the bio in both, so people can pop on over there. They can take a peek around, see if what I offer is something that, you know, would be beneficial to them, and they can schedule an appointment that way. And we can do like a consultation, make sure that we are a good fit for one another, because that is the biggest thing when we are on our healing journey. We want to ensure that the person that we are going to, first of all, is able to help us, understand us. And you have to be comfortable, because when you're on that healing journey, you become very vulnerable. It's raw.
Yes.
You need to have that confidence within yourself and within that person, that you're going to be supported the entire time, because it can be messy.
It can be messy, and you have to make sure you can trust whoever it is you're going to help. Trust me, I know. And you also have to be able to understand that there is going to be an amount of work involved on your end. And if you're not committed to doing that work, you're probably not going to see the results. So I think it's incredibly important to make sure you're a good match with that person. So great. Thank you for sharing, Kelly. So what I really want to talk about today, and feel free to jump in really at any point. I wanted to make this as organic as possible, is I really wanted to talk about the connection that we have with trauma and how it connects to our emotions. And I know last episode, I spoke with two ladies who, had their share of experience with trauma. And then of course I spoke with Raquel with Jupiter 1111 and how she helps with trauma. And then I also spoke with Susie with Akashic reading and healing. And she spoke about how the trauma affects us in particular timelines, but also how the ancestral trauma moves down and how it's triggered depending on what experiences you have in this particular lifetime. So in your experience, maybe even if you want to talk about yourself and your own journey, that's perfectly fine if you feel comfortable doing that. But what correlation have you seen really between, like, what kind of emotions maybe that come through depending on the types or levels of trauma that you've seen? Can you give me some examples of what you've seen with that?
So a lot of the times we don't even realize that we're trapping trauma, is what I've come to see within my clients themselves. Everybody knows of like a physical trauma. You get hurt in some sort of way, or a mental trauma, emotional trauma, things like that. But a lot of the times there's also the psychic trauma. So for an example, what that would be, the events of 9/11. A lot of people didn't even realize that they had trapped these emotions because of that. It's a lot of people don't realize that there is that psychic trauma as well. And so trauma, it becomes stored within our subtle bodies, our organs, our chakras, our meridians. And what it does is it distorts our normal energetic field as well as the tissues within our body. So we have an issue with our mental health because of the trauma, our physical health because we're storing the stuff within our body. So then we start to develop the aches and pains, our emotional state. It's never ending.
Yeah, definitely. So, going back to, we always talk about like stress kills and how, and I think we touched on this earlier when you were speaking about people wanting to look for a cure for the symptom, but not the actual underlying issue. We go back to health just as a general rule. Let's go back to health because everybody knows health in the medical profession. It's this, okay, well, I have a headache. All right. So let me take a pill. I don't know why I have a headache. I just know I have a headache. So let me take a pill to numb the pain, right? But what happens with that? Well, the pain goes away and then we forget about it until it happens again. And then what happens? We take more painkillers. So instead of looking for the underlying reason as to why we have the headache, maybe we have a headache because we're hungry. Maybe we should eat properly. Maybe we have a headache because we're not sleeping properly. Maybe we should take care of that. Maybe we're not drinking enough water. Instead of looking into those things and actually taking care of the root issue as to why we have a headache and actually prevent it from happening in the first place, we just continue to take more painkillers. And what happens with that? Well, you end up hurting your liver, you end up hurting your stomach, you end up hurting your kidneys, to having even more long-term effects, because guess what? You were just searching for a cure to the symptomatic. it kind of goes back to, those of us in the spiritual community who do tarot readings, which I know you do as well.
Yeah.
Instead of, well, let me look at a tarot reading for a symptomatic cure. Maybe my person ghosted me, or I'm going through something, I don't know what it is. Let me go watch a tarot reading to tell me everything's okay. But then we're like, oh, everything's okay, so let me just keep going and keep doing what I'm doing. But then all of a sudden we're back to where we were, to where we're like, I need to go look at a tarot reading again, instead of looking at the underlying issue as to what it is. What is this situation showing me? What is this situation trying to teach me? And to actually bring myself into a sense of awareness. So moving into that space, into the sense of awareness, what do you feel is like, when you have somebody who comes to you and they don't know why they're feeling what they're feeling, they just know they're feeling it. How do you get them to that next step of awareness? How do you help them with that?
So to get them to that next step, first of all, it's a matter of coming to a place within yourself of saying, I'm done with this. Mm-hmm. This is no longer for me. And I want to be better. I want to be a better version of myself. And then being able to put together a program for them. So not only with the clearings, but adding in the other things as well that we tend to overlook. Shadow work is a big thing. A lot of people do not want to confront the shadow side. So being able to bring that to their awareness that it's not a one-time fix. This is a process. Commit to yourself, commit to your, the life you're trying to build for yourself now.
Yep, exactly. So, and I was saying this, the process is always the same. It's like, there's always everything in life is a process. Whatever it is you're trying to conquer, whether it's you're trying to overcome your trauma, whether it's you're trying to build a business, whether it's you're trying to, start a YouTube channel, whatever it is, everything's a process. And so a lot of times, unfortunately, what happens is you get to a point where people, yes, I can't take this anymore. I've gained 20 pounds. I got to lose 20 pounds really, really fast. So what do? You go look for a quick fix. You go look for like a body cleanse. You go look for this, that, and the other. When I'm looking at it as a temporary solution to get me to a point where I feel more confident to keep going. The problem is when you don't look at it as a lifestyle change, then that's where you hit that block, because you're looking at it as a temporary solution. And so that being said, how do you get that client to commit to their transformation once they get to that? Because trust me, I know we've been there. We've all been there, where we're like, a sense of awareness is great, but it's like, oh my God, this looks so daunting. How am I going to get from A to B?
I find a lot of people look at the entire staircase. They're at the bottom and they want to be at the top. And what I try and tell people is, you're taking it one step at a time. Do not try and get that whole staircase in one shot, because it's not, you're setting yourself up for failure. So basically, when they come to me, we're going to have that first conversation. What is it that you want to gain from this? And then we start putting everything together at that time. So, the first session, we may just do a quick code clearing. But then once we get past the emotions, because a lot of people, we usually have about 300 to 350 emotions within us, depending on our age, of course, and what kind of the severity of trauma that we've experienced from birth to wherever we're at in that time. But then we might start doing just specifically focused on trauma energy. Maybe we're holding self-limiting beliefs at the same time that we also need to release. So it's just, the first session is, I want to get to know you. I want to know what we're dealing with. And then we're going to start putting together different modalities to come in as well, to make sure that you are fully supported and we are working towards the same thing.
Gotcha. Yeah. So looking at that staircase, yes, very, very confident. So it's like, okay, I got to remind myself, right, that I'm going to be taking one step at a time. So staying present is incredibly important, but also to remember to enjoy the journey. Like, I think a lot of people unfortunately forget, especially now, People want to take things so seriously. It's why I laugh at everything. You know, people get triggered when I laugh, and I'm like, guys, you don't understand. Laughter is the best transmuter in the world. you, if you're in a low place, just start laughing. Trust me, you'll come out of it real quick. But the idea that you can't enjoy the journey, the idea that you can't enjoy the process, you know, it's like people are just so frustrated with where they're at, and they're so daunted. They feel so daunted by what they have to reach for that they kind of forget this middle part. And so how do you support your clients during that scary time? Because it is scary, because they're coming out of their comfort zone. They're moving into a space that's very unknown. Like how do you support your clients there?
So one of the things that I always tell my clients first off is when we start this journey, healing is not going to the store and grabbing a self-help book and throwing on some essential oils.
First of all, we've all done that. Okay, if you can't admit that you've done that,
we all try.
Yep.
We all try, but we get to that point, like you throw that book away and you're smelling like God knows what because you've got every type of oil on.
Patchouli,
patchouli. We have some frankincense. We've got everything. But real healing is, you know, you've been there, I've been there. It is laying on the bathroom floor, crying, begging, you know, the higher powers to not let you wake up the next morning. And you wake up, and there is one day you wake up and you say, I am done with this crap. This isn't for me. So when they are going through that dark time, because again, it hurts, it's scary, they have access to me. They have access to me on my app. They have access to me direct messaging. Some people, depending where they are in the journey, they will actually have my personal number as well as, like, you know, email. So they are always supported. They are never alone, because when you're going through it and you have nobody, it is the scariest thing in the entire world.
It really is, especially when you feel like you have people around who don't understand what you're going through. And this is why I kind of talked about this last time a little bit about marginalizing your trauma. You know, there are, of course, different levels of trauma as we look at it in the 3D, different levels on the 3D of what trauma should look like. And the problem with that, I'm not necessarily saying optics are wrong, but you know, the problem with looking at it that way is that we tend to marginalize our own trauma. So when we're going through a situation, let's just throw some stuff out there. Okay, so as an example, when I was going through, you know, struggling to leave my situation 2 years ago, you know, I was in a place where I knew I wanted to leave, but I was spending time on the bathroom floor crying because I felt like I didn't have the support. I didn't understand why it wasn't working out. Everything I tried to do wasn't working out. You know, it was a very energetically low place for me, to the point where I didn't want to wake up in the next morning. You know, it was that kind of feeling. But let's say you have somebody who's gone through like high levels of trauma, maybe, you know, I don't know, like sexual abuse or something of that nature. Or somebody who may be, you know, homeless, living on the street, and is in that same energetic feeling. Sure, I may have a roof over my head, but energetically, I'm in the same place because I don't want that roof over my head. I am wanting to go somewhere else. This place that I'm at is not safe. So energetically vibrating on the same level. So you can't really marginalize your own trauma that way. So, you know, we talk about that too, like with faith and like the different levels of faith. That's why we say, you know, the 3D is an illusion. Not literally, you still have, you know, you can't walk through walls because walls are molecular. But, you know, on the same token, if you have your Christian faith and somebody else has their Buddhist faith, but you're in faith at the same time, you're going to be vibrating at the same level. So energetically, you're in the same place, even though the situations and the quote unquote beliefs in the 3D may be different. So that being said, tell me, like, what have you seen? Like, what has been kind of some of the similarities you've seen with different levels, but energetically are the same, like with your clients that you can speak to?
The first thing that I've really found is guilt. No matter where they are, they have guilt. It could be guilt because they want better for themselves, guilt because they're leaving behind what they feel they should be doing, which it's fine to have that guilt, but you need people need to understand they have to do what's best for them. It doesn't matter what your parents think, it doesn't matter what your children think, all that, because it has to start with you. And as you start to change, everyone around you also changes.
So it's like a domino effect, right?
Yeah.
Right. So that also being said, and that I think you hit on a big touch point with a lot of people is shame, is guilt, because when you look at the vibrational the map, vibrational map, I think the very lowest vibration is actually shame. Shame is what brings about guilt, right? The emotion of guilt, shame. And then so you go up for that. Believe it or not, fear is actually the highest vibration of the lowest vibration.
Yeah.
So once you get to fear, it's like, oh, okay, yeah. Shame is the lowest you can go. Shame is the bottom. Like when you hit rock bottom, and we talk about hitting rock bottom, and a lot of times you're in shame and you're feeling the guilt. And the guilt can come from, like you said, it's really loyalty to certain belief systems that maybe you've spent a long time in a certain place trying to make it work, and then it never seems to be able to work. But instead of breaking that cycle of you keep trying and failing, you're feeling guilty for actually not wanting to try anymore. Is that what you're saying?
It's a guilt of not wanting to try anymore. And it's also the guilt of it's self-guilt, because as we're going through a healing process and the healing journey, we're starting to delete a lot of the programs that we have held from infancy, even because it's our parents, it's our caregivers, it's all of that help bring about the programmings that we have today as adults. And we're kind of going against the grain by getting rid of that.
So would you say it's almost an attachment to the people and than it is really to the programming? It's this idea that if I release this programming, I'm letting this person down.
And a lot of people feel that as they release the programming, they're going to be releasing that person as well. And a lot of times they are not ready to do that. They have that loyalty to their mother, their father, whoever it happens to be. And because they are already in such a lower vibration, it's like one more person is going to leave me because if I do this.
But also, I will say, and I've found this with my own clients, have you found this as well, where when somebody finally releases the loyalty to the programming and this fear that they're going to lose this person, have you found, because I have found this, where it's like you don't actually lose that person. Like a lot of times that person is inspired by the fact that you broke that mold, and they're like, oh my gosh, like you might, I see you in a different light, but you're a stronger person now, and I'm inspired. Would you say you've seen that?
Yes, because as we heal, we also empower everyone else. We have so many people that are watching us that we don't even realize it.
Facts. So like, and I talk about this a lot too, like talking about the domino effect, where how you being empowered to make that first step and be like, I'm breaking this mold. I have had enough. I love, you, and I thank you for the lesson, but I'm going to go do my own thing now, is going to inspire somebody else. I mean, how many of you have been in a place where you're like, I can't do this? Let's say again, going back to my own experience, I can't leave this situation because I don't have any money. I don't have any friends. I don't have blah, 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 blah. But then you see a story that inspires you because maybe somebody came from the same place you did, or maybe even farther down, and they overcame and they were able to do it. How many of you were able to just be like, oh my gosh, if that person can do it, I can do it, And then on the same token, it's like, well, if that person can do it, why can't I do it? So it's like looking at that and realizing that we all, in some way, are leaders, but we all, in some way, are also inspired by someone else. I mean, should help you to come into that perspective of, if somebody else can break the mold, I can. So therefore, if I break the mold, I'm inspiring somebody else. And that's a very powerful thing and empowering within itself. So knowing that as we do, so going through like the acceptance and then, or I'm sorry, the awareness and then the acceptance, what do you do from there? Once you've kind of come into the acceptance, how do you help your clients through that next step?
Basically, once they come to that acceptance, we just hit it. Like we go all in. We are digging deep. We're not throwing a band-aid over it. We're getting to the root of everything. I want to know why it is that you're a people pleaser. Let's trace this back. I want to know why you're so scared. Let's keep going. Let's trace it back.
Great. So it's like you hit cycles. So you find the cycles that they're repeating and help them resolve those at the root. So that's awesome. So let's talk about this just on like on a an expertise level. So your expertise is like emotional co-clearings and tying that back to traumatic cycles. What would you say is the most common? I know we talked about guilt, but what would you say is the most common emotion that someone is in when they're in their acceptance state? And the reason I'm asking this is because I want whoever's listening, if you're going through the healing process, I want you to be able to recognize your emotions and be able to maybe put them at where you are in your particular vibration. So when we look at the vibrational map, like I said, the lowest vibration is shame, which brings about guilt. So usually, when we start going up there, you have like fear, which usually brings about obviously the anxiety, right? And then when you start going up into the higher levels, you have acceptance, which usually brings about forgiveness. So what would you say are your transitions that you've seen with most of your clients, like so that somebody who's listening now can maybe pinpoint where they are in that healing journey?
So once we get to that place of acceptance, the next part that I find is they kind of go backwards a little bit. We go back to fear because it's like you're right there, but am I really ready to jump? It's like ego kicks in. We're at a place of acceptance, we're ready to go, but then wait, what if I can't actually do this? So that I find if we take 2 steps forward, 1 step back, we go back to fear. So then it's a matter of sitting in fear. Let's sit there. Let's explore this. What is the worst case scenario that can happen? Good. We played it out. Now it's time to jump over that fear and go straight to, excitement. I'm ready for this.
Okay, good. So yeah, I have noticed that as well. So it's like you get to a certain point and you're outside your comfort zone. So let's say you've been in shame for a really long time. You got comfortable there, even though it hurts you. You got comfortable there. You start climbing that ladder and you get up into neutrality, and then all of a sudden you're up in this higher vibrations. The first higher vibration is acceptance. Okay. And you get into that and you start feeling that panic response, that fear response just start to pull you back down. How do you help them overcome that though? When they start going down there, what is the trigger? What is it that you help them what do you do to goose them to get them back up into those higher vibrations? Or what can someone do if they're not working with someone, if they're trying to do it themselves? How can they goose themselves back up into that higher vibration?
Well, first of all, they need to come to another place of acceptance that this is going to be their new normal, because being in the higher vibration, we're not used to it when we're coming from a low vibration. We start experiencing so many feelings within ourselves, and it's scary because we're not used to it. So just letting them know that it's okay. If they happen to slip back down, that's okay. It's not a failure. We can take that step back as long as we don't stay there. We need to keep going forwards. So it's just a matter of letting them know that there is no right or wrong way. And if they're trying to do it on their own, the first thing that they need to do is they need to be gentle on themselves. A lot of self-love on a healing journey, for sure.
And guys, when we say self-love, we're not talking about, no, this is nice. We're not talking about taking a bubble bath with a glass of wine. I mean, that's wonderful every now and then, absolutely wonderful, but that's not what we mean by self-love. When we're talking about self-love, what we're really talking about is putting yourself in a position that, am I doing the right thing for me right now? Because if you can't definitively say that you're doing the right thing for you right now, you are not in self-love. And would you say you find a lot of correlation between guilt and people who are trying to move into self-love? I feel like there's a lot of correlation between people thinking that self-love is selfish.
Yes. And that's one thing that we need to stop, because I was there too. I wouldn't take any time for myself. I'm a mom. I had 2 small children when I started going through my entire awakening experience. And, it took a long time to be able to say to myself, you deserve this. You cannot help your children if you're not okay. And it took a while to be able to sit in that selfish energy and then be like, you know what? I am worth this. If I need to take an hour to myself and just curl up under the blankets and just shut the world out, that's okay.
Right. And releasing the guilt for taking care of yourself is incredibly important. And I will say, I find a major correlation with specifically women, but feminines in general, that we have this programming that we're running, whether it's ancestral or sometimes learned during a particular timeline, is that we have to give ourselves over to those that we love. We must sacrifice ourselves for those that we love. And that's not necessarily true either, because unfortunately, a lot of times is you'll sacrifice, 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 and you'll end up in a situation where someone's just taking, 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 and not reciprocating, because you are not setting that example of that you also need that fulfillment in that particular situation. And on a human level, not even talking about a soul level, talking about a human level, there are certain things that you will not put up with, and that certain things that you actually need in any sort of relationship. And I feel like faith and mutual understanding is probably the biggest one. Trust and feeling safe. And unfortunately, there are a lot of people who just don't feel safe because they've allowed themselves to continue that cycle. So can you, if you don't mind, telling us a little bit about your story and how you got to where you are, just so, maybe listeners can relate to on a human level where you're at and where you came from.
So basically my journey started 7 years ago. My daughter and I were involved in a horrific car accident. That was kind of my wake up call. When I look back, I was given another opportunity to do something worthwhile, because when you look at the pictures of the car accident, and there is no human logical explanation on why we should both be here today. So I kind of played around with it for a while. I'm like, wow, I made it through, and I'm just going to do whatever I want because I'm obviously invincible. And in 2019, I had my wake up call. I underwent my entire spiritual awakening in a matter of, I think, a few weeks, and it knocked me on my ass. I was like you. I was on the bathroom floor crying my eyes out because I had no idea what was happening to me. I had no prior knowledge, I guess, of this type of lifestyle, I'm going to say, because it is a lifestyle, trusting that there is a higher power, whether you refer to it, like you said, as Buddha, Jesus, God, whatever you choose to refer to it as. There's something bigger than us out there. And I couldn't run from it anymore. It took me a while. My family didn't understand what was happening to me. I didn't understand what was happening to me. But I made the commitment to myself that I wasn't going to run from it. I was going to power through, and wherever it took me. And the divine basically started bringing people into my life, one small step on that staircase at a time. People would reach out to me. I don't know why. I am being guided to offer you a free consultation. I would like to offer you a spot on my program. And at first I was like, what is happening to me? Why are these people messaging me? I don't even know you. But
like, just go with God. Just be thankful. Don't question it.
And that's where I got to the point. Like, there was one person on Instagram who really stands out to me. He offered me his program at no charge. So I took it, and a lot of the times, people, when you're given something for free, you don't appreciate it. But
right.
I appreciated the fact that somebody would give me a chance to help walk me through this, so I wasn't so alone. So I did it, being able to forgive myself, being able to forgive everyone around me, whether they hurt me consciously or subconsciously, didn't really matter. It happened, but it was time to release that. It wasn't going to hold me back anymore. And making that commitment I believe was a test. Is she ready for this? And I passed that test because then as I did that, my business started to take off. My relationships changed. And now looking where I'm at today, 10 years ago, I would have thought this was some sort of dream that I had. I wake up every morning, I get to be home with my kids. I get to have a very nice lifestyle. And the biggest part is I get to help other people the way people help me, which is, that is the biggest thing, is I get to help.
It's priceless, right? It's
priceless.
Yes. So thank you for sharing and being, opening yourself up and being so vulnerable with us, because, on a human level, you got to understand, guys, like all of us, we all know where you've been because we've been there, and we're still learning. I'm still cooking. Trust me. I still have my own stuff I'm dealing with, so it's not done. But I can tell you 2 years ago where I'm at right now, I never would have thought possible. Never would have thought possible. And I'm coming up on my 2-year anniversary of signing the lease on my apartment, that real first big move that I made to get out of that situation, guys. So like, just understand, this is hitting home for me too. But we also have to understand that when you start taking those steps, just one at a time, and you start just putting your head right in the present and putting your faith right in there and saying like, this is my next step. This is my next step. This is my next step. You will find that it almost seems like one day you wake up and that dream that you had is reality. So it's not that you just manifested it. It's not that you just dreamt it up. You started taking those actions and making your actions equal to your intentions. That's what creates the reality. And that's what those of us who've experienced this first are here to show you how to do. And it's like I always say, you don't have to be an expert at everything to help anybody. You just need to be 1 or 2 steps ahead of the people that you're helping. And that seems to be always where I'm at usually. So I'm grateful for that, because it's not something I have to recall from like 10 years ago. It's just something that is, like I said, guys, 2 years ago, 2 years, maybe a year, maybe 6 months, So thank you, Kelly. Also, can you maybe give some advice to somebody out there who might be where you were 2 years ago or 3 years ago? What would you tell that person?
Don't give up. Fight. Don't give up. Because when you come out of this looking back, you're going to see just how strong you are and how many people have been cheering you on from the sidelines that you didn't even know were there.
Yeah, exactly. And how many people are watching you and are waiting for you to step into your role. Yeah. So on that note, Kelly, I know you've been super vulnerable, but I want you to share what really inspired you to do what you do. Why do you do what you do?
My kids. My kids. I want them to know their mom is a fighter and they have that blood in them. There is nothing that they cannot conquer.
Yep. Bingo. And you know what? At the root, I think most of us, whether we have kids or not, most of us, we want to show somebody else deep down. Yep. We may not know that that's what it is, but when it comes around, we're like, you know what? This is exactly why I'm doing what I'm doing. And so guys, I inspire you. I implore you, before you even go down the road, I want you to think about your why. And I want you to think about your why unabashedly, with no shame attached to it. What is your why? Do you have kids? Do you have family? Do you, what is it that drives you to want to make that change? And once you see it, once you put that out there, and once you visualize what it really is, that is really going to hold you accountable. And that's the most important thing in this journey, is holding yourself accountable. So real quick, Kelly, what would you tell somebody? What would you tell somebody, or what do you tell your clients when they're ready to give up? What do you tell them? What did you tell yourself when you were ready to give up?
Your best life is just on the other side of fear.
Bingo. Woohoo! Your best life. It's on the other side. So awesome. Well, thank you so much, Kelly, for joining me today. And I want to wrap up here real quick. Again, how can people find you? And if you don't mind, just maybe one more tidbit or two for the people listening who are in the same situation you were a couple years ago.
So they can find me again on Instagram, which is at moongirlhealing. The Facebook page is www.facebook.com/moongirlhealing. We also have a private group that is joined with the page. So that's my safe spot for everybody. So they can say what they need to say. It's a community for them. Everyone is supported there. And I guess, the one thing that if anybody takes anything from this, I just want to let them know that the fact that they even are considering this, they are trying to take that first step. I am so proud of them. I am so proud of them for even entertaining the thought of it's time to start something different.
Exactly. And just one more tidbit for you guys. And I know this is in my experience, and obviously Kelly said it, that when you are fully committed, when you are ready and you made that decision on what you will not accept anymore in your life and what you actually want to create in your reality, the doors will open, the opportunities will present themselves. The people who are aligned with you and who are ready to show you how to do it will show up. It's up to you to take the opportunities, to release the belief systems that are sitting here going, well, this is too good to be true, right? Release those thoughts, release that negativity, release anything within you that is keeping you from believing that your new reality is possible. Okay, so definitely, if you have any questions, you can reach out to me, but also reach out to Kelly. Anybody really that you're called to reach out to that you feel would give you help, that you're being called to contact, do it. Don't think about it. just do it. Just do it. Okay. All right, Kelly, I really want to thank you so much for joining me today. It was definitely a pleasure. And so I hope you have a good rest of your day.
You too.
Thank you. Thank you again, Kelly, for joining me and for being so vulnerable and open and for sharing with us your expertise. And I sincerely hope everybody got as much out of it as I did. I love doing interviews. I love these. I love doing this so much. And so I'll be definitely putting some more together for my next couple of episodes. Guys, if you know of somebody that you would like me to interview, please send me an email, sasha@divinepisces222.com. With information on this person and how I can reach out to them to bring them onto my podcast. I love doing this. I want to bring more light workers into the fold and bring more awareness to the topics that we cover and more awareness to the work that we do as light workers. It's very important, especially right now. I want you all to just understand, everything that you've been through, somebody else has been through or is going through. It's so important to have that sense of community, and that's why I do what I do. So, guys, feel free to check out my Facebook group. It is free. It is Trauma Healing and Support Divine Lifeworks Coaching. You can find it on Facebook. If you have any questions about it, feel free again to send me an email. I can send you the link directly. But basically, right now, I really want to focus on bringing the community together so that we can all support each other during this next phase. I know I've talked about this before, but guys, we're going through this major split right now, the consciousness split. Basically, it's those of us who are choosing one way and those who are choosing another way. And guys, the gap is widening, okay? And the door is closing to make your choice. And I know over the next couple of months, we're going to be entering into a period of self-doubt. So all of these choices that you're making now are going to seem like the wrong choice because people are going to fall away from you. Situations are going to fall away from you. Things that you used to resonate with that you may no longer resonate with will fall away. And it's going to be very confusing for a while. But just put it in perspective. Feel what you need to feel. Release the allegiances and the loyalties to these things that no longer serve you so you can actually step into what it is you're trying to create, guys. So stay strong, stay sovereign, stay empowered, and stay true to your path. And just know that everything is happening for you and not to you. Okay, guys? Thank you so much for joining me on today's episode. I hope you all have a great rest of your day, and I will see you soon. Bye-bye.